Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee for today, May 5th. I've been joined by Council Members Reich, Fry, Quincy, and Cano. That is a quorum of our committee. There are 18 items on our agenda for approval today. Items on the consent agenda include items 8 through 17. Items 13 through 17 are referrals. Item 8 is the license applications recommended for approval. 9 is the sidewalk cafe ordinance with regard to the Nicollet Mall during the reconstruction period. 10 is a small change to our permit fee ordinance. 11 are the Great Streets Business District support contracts, and 12 is confirming the mayoral appointment to the Family Housing Fund Board. Are there any items anyone would like to pull off of consent, which is items 8 through 17? Seeing none, I'm going to move the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll then move on to our first public hearing, starting with item number 1, which is a land sale at 4039 Aldrich Avenue North. Mr. Pettiford, welcome.
Good afternoon. Earl Pettiford, Senior Project Coordinator. I have an offer, actually from the adjacent property owners, Amy Hollabar and Don Hunt, to acquire our property at 4039 Aldrich. These two people operate a foster care program, which is licensed by Hennepin County. They reside and care for up to, at this point, 8 children at a time. And the children fall under the 1978 Indian Child Welfare Act, and the majority of the children they foster are newborn, having been exposed to drugs or alcohol during birth. They work with the pediatrician to help these babies withdraw from their addictions. And on November 22nd of 2014, they actually adopted 4 of the children, and they operate a great program, and they take children that are very difficult to place anywhere else. The disposition policy allows the sale of buildable lots as side yards to provide for needed open space for adjacent licensed daycare. Similar public interest would be served by allowing this sale to a licensed foster home provider. The property is being sold for its fair reuse value, and a conservation easement will be placed on the land to preserve it as green space. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Pettiford on item number 1? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the
Thank
public
you.
hearing on item 4039 Aldrich Avenue North. This is a land sale. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move approval of this item.
Item number 1 is moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 2. Ms. Oates, welcome.
Madam Chair, council members, this is the consideration of the sale of a property at 1418 Sheridan Avenue North. This is a property that the city of Minneapolis purchased from the state of Minnesota through the tax forfeit process, which we purchased for at a reduced price of $1 on the basis of the existing state statute, which allows the county to reduce the price of a property if it is going to be blight removal or creation of affordable housing. This existing structure will be sold to the Community Lakes Land Trust, and it will be rehabilitated and sold to an owner-occupant. It will create long-term affordable housing as well as reducing the blight that exists in that location. Staff is recommending the sale of the property for the $1 that we paid for it, as well as a little over $5,000 in additional acquisition costs. This went out to the neighborhood. It was supported, and staff is recommending approval of this land sale.
Are there any questions for Ms. Oates on item number 2? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 2, which is 1418 Sheridan Avenue North. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Reich.
Madam Chair, approve the item as recommended.
On the motion to approve, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. On to item number 3, which is a land sale at 2523 Washington Avenue Northeast. Mr. Pettiford.
Madam Chair, council members, we have a proposal offered by Gimmick to develop a single-family house on this very nice parcel. They developed the houses across the street on the former Crown Sidewalk site. Gimmick met with the neighborhood and in their meeting featured a 1,678 square foot single family house with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths with a double car detached garage. They're anticipating a sales price of $360,000. The neighborhood unanimously endorsed moving this proposal forward. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Pettiford on item number 3? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 3, which is 2523 Washington Street Northeast. This is a land sale. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move approval and note, as suggested by staff, there was great work done with staff, Gimmick, and the community group. It was a great collaboration. I applaud that and move approval.
On the motion to approve, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. On to item number 4, Chow Girls Killer Catering. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have an application by Chow Girls Incorporated doing business as Chow Girls Killer Catering for a new location for them at 711 15th Avenue Northeast. That's the 3rd floor of the Solar Arts Building. They're seeking an on-sale liquor license, Class B, and liquor catering and food catering as well. The Office of the Zoning Administrator has determined that it is a legally zoned site. They do have a 31-space parking requirement on this site. That is under construction right now. I made a site visit this morning, and it's nearing completion. They will have an occupancy, total occupancy by fire occupancy of 442 persons, and they generally will be open, could be open from 8 in the morning till midnight. Chow Girls consists of Amy Brown and Heidi Andamack, and Heidi will be the manager of this premises. Chow Girls has operated at 1222 2nd Street Northeast in a similar fashion since 2011 with no issues at all. A public hearing is required for this application. We did notify all residents and property owners within 600 feet. We mailed 147 notices. We notified the Logan Park Neighborhood Association, the Northeast Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce, and the council member of the ward. We have received 15 responses. One of those responses supports the application, 14 oppose the application. To summarize, generally the oppositions we received are related to the residential properties to the west side of this property, and they're concerned about noise, traffic, parking that such a facility would generate. Our review of the application finds that it is a properly zoned, it meets all of the liquor code requirements, and so they certainly qualify for a license, and staff's recommendation is to approve.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 4? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 4, which is on sale liquor Class B with Sunday sales license for Chow Girls Catering. There is one person who has signed up in advance, Tammy DeRosmi. I'd invite you to come up and speak first. If you could keep your comments to about 2 minutes. We're not going to use a
Absolutely.
timer, but so
Sure.
we'll trust you.
Thank you. So my name is Tammy Drasmy. I live at 1508 Monroe. I'm right around the corner from the Solar Arts Building where the Chow Girls Catering will hold their events. I just don't think that a liquor license is the right fit for this neighborhood. I spoke to one neighbor on Sunday. I spent 3 hours on my Sunday walking around trying to find neighbors to talk to. And this young gentleman, he did not really have an issue. He said, this is already a boozy neighborhood, so what's the difference? I like to think of it not as that, but that's kind of the impression that he gave. It's supposed to be an arts neighborhood, and that's what the Solar Arts Building I thought was all about. I'd already also spoke to many neighbors on Monroe that are against the liquor license. I did capture some signatures, which I submitted to Nicole Anderson. I'm not going to cover the space for the parking. That's already been covered, but I'm also concerned 31 spaces compared to an event of over 400 people. Where are these people going to park? It's going to flow out into the streets, which I've already seen because of all of the other activity at the Solar Arts building. As of yesterday, on the Chow Girls website, they already have 10 events booked for the month of May, as I looked at their calendar. And they're also promoting the parking at 1531 Monroe, which is not yet completed. I think the residents of the neighborhood are the people that have to deal with this on a daily basis, 7 days a week. We've already seen an increase because of the Indeed Brewery, which is open 4 days a week. So we're adding beer, now we're adding liquor to this mix. As a 17-year resident of Logan Park, I felt an impact to the addition of the events at the building. And now this request of the liquor license by the Chow Girls Catering is just one more addition. Impacts to foot traffic, car traffic, parking, noise, and more intoxicated people. So this is not what I signed up for when I purchased a home in that neighborhood. I put a call into Councilman Reich for my concerns. One of my biggest concerns is the value of my home. How is this going to affect the value of my home? What happens when the day comes when I decide to sell and everybody's going, well, I don't want to live down the street from that. I'm asking that the council not make a decision today. I think we really need to take a step back and really do our due diligence on how this is going to impact the people that live there day in and day out and have to put up with noise, traffic, and all of this. It has been a huge change to our little part of the neighborhood. So I'm not in favor of the liquor license. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Bill Speak. I live at 1503 Monroe Street. I am their next door neighbor. I've lived there for 30 years. And when he first approached me, Dwayne, I think his name is, he asked if there's going to be any problems. And I told him right off the bat, parking. And there has been nothing but problems with parking ever since. I've got people parking illegally, and I can't park anywhere. I have to leave my car there and walk somewhere. I sent you some photos, and you see one of the smart car. That one left it there Saturday night, I believe it was. And he's right hard up against my driveway. The other one I'm showing you is the Indeed truck. He broke down. He was taken off to deliver his stuff, 8 o'clock in the morning. As you can see there, he is almost completely blocking my driveway. I went over and talked to the guy. He said, yeah, thing breaking down. Well, the thing sat there for 30 hours. They didn't come and tow it until late the next morning, which to me is just the attitude of those people. They're the big gorilla, and they can do whatever they want. So I'm unhappy. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ted Carling, and I live at I just moved there. 1229 6th Street Northeast. I actually work at Chow Girls Catering. I'm the director of operations there. And yeah, we've been totally aware of the parking issue since Dwayne approached us about working with him there. And the parking lot is being built, and it should be done within a couple of weeks. We have to wait till the cement is dry to put the asphalt down. Part of what we do is work with hotels to bring the events. There's a lot of guests who, work with hotels to get their entire group to stay at the hotel and shuttle back and forth, because at the end of the night, it's best if everybody can get back home safely, and that's part of the service that a hotel provides. We've worked with a couple hotels downtown so far. We do have valet services and have parking space with Johnson Paper Company down the street to valet cars back and forth there, and have an agreement with the ice arena on Central for extreme overflow parking to move there. As far as a boozy neighborhood goes, it's not our intent to make it that. We're trying to help people celebrate their lives, and weddings are a big part of that, and Saturdays is when people are naturally off work and want to have those events. When we hire a bartender, we put them through a process to teach them the signs of intoxication and also how to cut people off. And, you know, we're not there to get people drunk. They're supposed to have a fun time and not vibe too much. Our goal is to do that safely. And we've so far had no issues with it. And I think we will continue to. We've been in Sheridan neighborhood for 11 years, just actually 9 years in Sheridan. There was 2 years in Uptown, and we're a big part of the arts community in Snow. And Art World is one of our most fun events in all of year. And I think that Charles has done a pretty solid job of trying to mitigate all of these things while continuing to provide the service that we'd like to. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I make my motion, I just want to comment. You know, issues and concerns that are raised by about the livability in the community, I take very seriously. But it does seem to me that to block a component of the business operation to categorically address a whole series of issues that may or may not be generated by that would not seem appropriate. It seems like staff has been diligent. I don't know if there's any more investigation that could be done in terms of facts and finding. So procedurally, I think we would have to move forward. In terms of parking violations, noise violations, you know, any sort of deviation from the approved operation, I'll be the first to vigorously inspect and enforce that. If there's a truck in your way, call me, we'll tow it. We'll figure out a way to get rid of that vehicle. But this isn't a way to get to that issue. In terms of the activity of the building, a lot of that activity already is generated. I, you know, live not too far away from that area, and also live by 2 event places on Central Avenue myself. And that's already happened. I think the community group embraced the concept of this building. It has 3 different types of operations: the brewery, the arts gallery, and then the event center. I think that concept was embraced. To not support that concept, and a piece of it just wouldn't seem genuine to me. Now, if we want to revisit how that building's used, we can rezone it and maybe do some other adjustments there, but that's not what I heard from the community at large when the building was repurposed. It was repurposed from an industrial use. Industrial uses have an activity component as well. Granted, for several, maybe a decade plus, it was kind of quiet as cold storage, but that doesn't mean it stays that way, particularly in a growing economy. So also I would note there have been some changes in not just the more fun, vibrant activity that of course generates more traffic and people and cars. There's been a big change in terms of the crime activity. Prior to the redevelopment of this building, there's 50 police calls when I took office in that block alone. Now we have 1. That's the kind of change that I think improves property value. So I'm cautiously in favor of this. We will address some of these issues, but this is not the way to do it. So I'm going to move approval, Madam Chair.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with absolutely everything Councilmember Reich just said, and I will only add that Chow Girls has been in the Sheridan neighborhood for, what was it, is it a decade now? And property values have only gone up. They have only been a good member of the neighborhood. They've been tremendously involved and engaged, and they work hand in hand with the Arts District. So you've been a tremendous partner in the 3rd Ward, and I'm sure you will also be a tremendous partner in the 1st.
Okay, so Councilmember Reich has a motion in front of us to approve the recommendation. I do want to explain kind of how liquor licensing works, just so folks have an idea. The event center is allowed under the zoning, and what we're here today is to talk about whether or not they can sell liquor. In the city, a liquor license is something that you can obtain if you meet certain requirements. The 2 major requirements being your money came from somewhere that was a reputable source, and that you were an operator that had a track record of good behavior, or someone who was new, who was reputable in the community. Behavior of people in the building and or behavior of patrons of the building generally, or where they park or how they park, has nothing to do with whether or not these folks would be entitled to a liquor license, which is what we have in front of us. I'll just ask Mr. Wilson or Mr. Fusey if I have incorrectly stated what is in front of us, because I think better to have a better interpretation of Councilmember Reich's point, which is we can't really bring up Indeed Brewing's bad behavior where they left their truck, and we will require 31 parking spaces, and they'll be able to meet that requirement with the new lot, and that's basically what we can do in an area that is zoned for an event center. So I just want to make sure I said everything correctly. And feel free to contradict me if I did not.
I believe you stated things correctly, Councilmember.
Okay. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I agree 100%. This site is clearly zoned per the charter exclusively. It has a 7-acre requirement. It meets all the parking requirements, and the applicant is in good standing with my office.
Okay. So given those facts and what we can consider today, on Councilmember Reich's motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Now we'll move on to item number 5, which is Cowboy Jack's at 2919 Hennepin Avenue. Very similar situation, a new proprietor, application for on-sale Class 2 with Sunday sales license. Mr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, we have an application by the After Midnight Group X LLC, doing business as Cowboy Jack's, and they are occupying a space at 2919 Hennepin that was formerly occupied as a similar on-sale restaurant use. A public hearing is required in this case because they're expanding the outdoor portion of their premises. They are asking for a on-sale liquor license Class C2 with Sunday sales. They will be open generally from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. with food service, full food service up until midnight, and a limited food menu from midnight till 2 a.m. This was formerly occupied by the Social House Restaurant and Zeno Coffee. Principals are Chris Diebold, Ann Loff, and Brian Asmuth. They currently own and have for a long time owned the Caboose, Cowboy Jack's downtown, Sally's on the East Bank by the U of M, and many other restaurants outside of the city. The Police License Division has reviewed their application and their business and security plans and approve of those. We have talked to them and put them in touch with our environmental management division about their rooftop patio and what the sound system will be like there. This premises will have 8,700 square feet on 4 floors. And the second floor and the third floor will be open rooftop area, deck areas. A public hearing is required, as I mentioned. We did a common mailing to all residents and property owners within 600 feet. We notified the Lowry Hill East and Echo Neighborhood Group, the Uptown Business Association, Lake Street Council, and Councilmember Bender's office. From that mailing, as of today, we received no responses for or against the application. This application meets all of the requirements of our codes, and staff's recommending approval.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 5? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 5, which is Cowboy Jack's at 2919 Hennepin Avenue. David George has signed in advance, so I'd invite you to come up, and if you could state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is David George. I'm the property owner of 5 apartment buildings, which are located immediately west of the Cowboy Jack's proposal and right behind the library, right behind the Walker Library. And as such, the outside edge of my property line facing the Cowboy Jack's is about 193 feet from Cowboy Jack's or the roof deck music that is going to be, or that is planned. Along the same line, along the entire rear of those apartment buildings, and by the way, there are 78 apartments there, which indicates maybe an approximate tenant load of about 150 tenants there. And the reason that you haven't probably heard from anybody else about this, as was mentioned a few minutes ago or a few seconds ago, is that I'm probably the only property owner or a residential function that's within the distance that would be maybe affected by a Cowboy Jack's. And unfortunately, I didn't get notice of this until about a week ago. So that's why I'm here. I'm concerned, obviously, about the noise. And as I interpret the data on the handouts that were sent out, and also the ones that were available online, there are 2 roof decks, as was mentioned, and I, in taking the numbers down, find that the top roof deck on the 3rd floor probably has about 110 occupants. The 2nd floor has something a little hard to determine, but something on the order of 126 possible occupants, and an additional expansion, which looks to me possible on the third floor, extending out toward the west from the existing 110 occupant roof deck, would probably hold another 236 occupants for a total of 449. If I do the math on that, that's about 2/3 of what the entire 677 occupant load is for the place that will be on the roof deck. And clearly, that's a concern to me and the people who live in those buildings, because this will be going on until I guess 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm totally, or I shouldn't say I'm not totally clear on exactly what steps have been taken to reduce the noise level. I read something about speakers turn inward so they're not going to be facing out. That's fine if that works, but it's just a little bit vague to me. And then I read that there will be some type of continued examination of the noise levels with, I forgot the name of the organization, but anyway, that will be looked at over the next, I'm gathering, few weeks. And I would like to be continued, or I would like to be involved in that discussion to some degree to make sure that whatever noise level is existing at the distance of my buildings, and by the way, if I didn't mention it, there are 18 balconies that extend out toward the back, and on a hot summer month at 1 in the morning, I really would hope my tenants would not have to keep the windows and doors closed so they could get some sleep. So that's my concern, and I would appreciate perhaps from some staff person or someone else to be contacted so that I could stay in the loop.
Can you just tell us once again so I can understand? I know where this building is. Where are the buildings that you
I should have
own?
given you the addresses. I'm sorry. It's 2870 to 2883 Holmes, specifically 2870, 2873, 2877, 2878, and 2883 Holmes Avenue. And this is a group of brownstone or reddish brownstone buildings immediately west of the library. It takes up about a half a block or 3/4 of a square block there between the mall and Lagoon.
So what stands between your buildings and this site is the library, Hennepin Avenue, and
Correct.
then this site. You're not adjacent to it.
No. If I use that word, it perhaps is misleading. I'm 100, as I mentioned, about 193 feet according to my measurements. That's the edge of my property line. The balconies are about 203 feet from the deck of Cowboy Jack's.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that.
I don't know if it's appropriate to ask that question, but can I somehow or another stay in the loop as far as this approval goes for the acceptable sound levels?
Why don't you yes, of course, why don't you let us see what we decide to do here first?
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Are you the owners? If I were you, I'd get up and say something fast because I'm going to move this forward without recommendation. Given what I just heard, I'm a little alarmed about that.
I'm Ann Law, and one of the owners of the After Midnight Group 10, which will own the Cowboy Jacks in Uptown. We've met with the Lowry Hill Association and we've met with the East Lowry Association. Got support from both, heard their comments about noise and some examples that they gave us. We've enlisted the help of a sound management to Mr. George's comments, ESI, and they're going to be working with us through the construction phase. And what can we do better during the construction phase that will help mitigate the sound going forward, as well as some monitoring so that it works. And they'll be working in conjunction with our construction team as well as our operations team after we're open, and the city sound people, which is environmental services. So we are very, very aware. When we used to run Cowboy Slims in Uptown, and we're part of the original group that implemented, I believe it's the Hush campaign, Brian, is that right? The Hush campaign. And we work very closely with police, with security, with our staff to make sure that when people leave our establishments, they're quiet. You are going to have noise. It's at Lake and Hennepin. I mean, it's Lagoon and Hennepin, but everybody there, that's why they're down there. To have fun, to be outside. Our season is short. The actual number of seats is incorrect. There's 186 inside. The first floor is inside, all inside. There's no patio, there's no outside sidewalk, cafe license, none of that. The basement is all kitchen. The second floor is deck. And the third tier is a smaller section that will house probably about 40 people.
So can you clarify what I'm looking at, it says there's 186 outdoor
Inside.
seats. I'm just looking at what it says, interior 147, exterior
Oh,
1.
yep. So the 147 then on the first floor would be the inside seating. Then there'd be a similar number on the second floor patio because it stretches the same size. The additional 40 would be the third floor.
So it's 220 people outside.
No. It's 186 outside.
Plus the on one level, plus 40 on another?
No, the 40 is included. So it's 146, let's say, on that second level.
Yeah, it's 147 on the interior and 186 on the exterior.
Which includes the third floor.
Okay, and what kind of amplified music are you proposing to have?
We're asking for typical amplified. I mean, we play just what?
Just normal country music. You know, we don't have any live music. We don't do any DJs. If we do any kind of live type of music, it's very, it's a one man.
Acoustical.
Yeah, it's acoustical. It's one man and a guitar. And typically that's inside. So yeah, the four levels is really kind of 3.5, if you will.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, but except we're very, very aware of your concerns, and we're working very hard with the sound people to make sure that it's as least impact as possible for it's been a big construction project.
And we were originally part of the Hush campaign, and from what I understand is that prior to that there was a lot of issues in Uptown, and after that campaign started, the issues they got a lot less sound and noise complaints. So it was a successful campaign.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? No. Can you talk to them directly?
Just a quick one.
You can't speak from the chair, so you have to speak here, and I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to add anything else.
I read in the literature here that a Class C2 license is what's being requested. Earlier today, I was informed by a staff person here that the rooftop requires a Class D. And I don't see that anywhere here. Class D apparently refers to the fact that there can be live music inside, but not on the rooftop and at a quieter level.
Okay, Ms. Casey, do you want to clarify that? It does say
Yes.
here Class C.
Madam Chair, all outdoor areas outside of downtown are automatically a D or less. Automatically. The C2 license is only for the interior. The only thing they can have up on the deck areas is outdoor speakers at an ambient sound level. And when they came in, they can probably tell you that I spent a lot of time talking about noise with them. And we agreed that they were going to put some things in place to help that sound level down. One was the speakers would face in, and that our environmental health management people would meet with their professional sound people after they opened to determine what that level of sound would be, what ambient sound for their place is. So their speakers are not technically amplified beyond their own deck area.
Okay, so a Class D license they can have outside, but they can't have live music amplified.
That's correct.
They can have ambient music with speakers.
That's
of which
correct.
we will check to make sure that the speaker sound itself is not going into the neighborhoods.
And we're going to do that. We're going to make sure that it doesn't go in the neighborhood.
Okay. Okay, I think that answers my questions. Are there other questions for Ms. Casey? Okay, this is a public hearing on item number 5, Cowboy Jacks. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'll move approval of the application, but I would urge you guys to talk to Mr. George about these concerns that he has, I think rightfully so. Not as much because of the people spilling out onto the street. I would agree with you. That's what happens at 2 in the morning, and who's to say your business is any worse than any of the others? I'm mainly worried about this noise on the deck itself and how loud that is in terms of hooting and hollering and screaming and loud music. I mean, this isn't downtown. And we don't really allow that downtown either, actually, just to be clear. But if you have a property owner with 150 tenants that could be your customers, you might want to pay attention to them. So I would urge you to do so. Are there other comments or questions? Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. The comment is really in the form of a question, but I'm hoping to find out, and I don't need to take up time now, but with Ms. Casey's help, if we could coordinate when the sound study that's being implemented right now underway, and when those results are due back. I don't know when that is, and that may be coordinated with your office, I'm sure. So I just wanted to point out that although you're doing a independent acoustic kind of measurement, that's in line with what we're expecting and hoping for, and that hopefully will be on the same time frame, that a report would come back before an opening of a facility. So I just wanted to make sure that Ms. Casey was aware of my interest in that. Thank you.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that they almost have to be given a chance to open and see what happens before. We can't tell with it empty, and I don't think that's going to be as good as when they're open and operating, and we really see that a lot of these concerns are really not a big deal, but I can understand the concern, and I think we just make sure we need to put you on notice now that we just want to make sure you address the music issue. On the motion to approve item number 5, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you for being here. We'll then move on to item number 6, Lago Tacos at Lynn Lake. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have an application by Lago Tacos, Lynn Lake, 2901 Lindale, for an expansion of premises for a sidewalk cafe. They will have 28 seats in this sidewalk cafe, hoping to operate it from 11 in the morning until 2 a.m. This is an 8 by 54-foot area in front of their restaurant, and the design of this sidewalk cafe plan has already been approved by Public Works. Notices have been sent to residents and property owners within 300 feet. Also notified the Whittier Neighborhood and Whittier Business Group and Lynn Lake Business Group in Councilmember Bender's office. We received one response. It was in support of this application, and that was from the Lake Street Council. I believe it meets all of the requirements in our ordinances, and staff's recommendation is to approve.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 6, Lago Tacos at Lynn Lake? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 6. This is an expansion of premise and a new license for Lago Tacos at 2901 Lindale Avenue South. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval of this item.
Approval of item number 6 has been moved. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll now turn this portion over the meeting to Councilmember Fry for our quasi-judicial public hearing.
We have one item on the agenda for today, item number 7, which is a rental dwelling license at 3324 23rd Avenue South. The owner is Margot Capax or Capax, and I believe Ms. Dowling is here to present.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. Property involved in this action is 3324 23rd Avenue South. This is a residential 2-unit dwelling. Mr. Capax is the owner of record and obtained a license to operate the property as a rental business in March 2009. On August 8, 2014, a written notice of violation was issued to the owner directing him to discontinue the unlawful occupancy of the basement space, to revert the dwelling back to its original authorized construction as a duplex, and to remove the unlawfully installed basement toilet, shower, kitchen sink, bathroom sink, and stove. The unit was also placarded placarded, with a notice of unlawful occupancy and was ordered to be vacated by September 30th, 2014. The compliance date established on the order was also September 30th, 2014. Also, a notice of director's determination of noncompliance was sent to the owner, giving him until September 30th, 2014 to come into compliance. Upon reinspection on October 2nd, the inspector was not able to gain access to the property to verify occupancy of the basement. The placard was removed and had to be reposted. On October 9th, 2014, the inspector returned and still was not able to gain access to the property, and the placard was again removed and it had to be reposted. A search warrant was issued, and on October 21st, 2014, the inspector was able to confirm the basement was not occupied and that it was still constructed and contained facilities to be used as a third unit. An administrative citation was issued payable for $250. The repeated missed inspections, the use of the basement as a unit, and the illegal occupancy of the basement are all in violation of licensing standards 2, 3, and 8 of Minneapolis Code 244.1910. On December 5th, 2014, a notice of director's determination of noncompliance was sent to the owner, giving him until December 18th to come into compliance. On January 5th, 2015, a notice of revocation was sent to the owner via U.S. and certified mail. The notice was also posted on the dwelling, giving him 15 days to file an appeal. An appeal was received and a hearing was set for April 21st, 2015 at 9 a.m. in front of Administrative Hearing Officer Fabian Hoffner. The respondent failed to appear. Evidence was presented and the hearing officer recommended that the license be revoked. The city is requesting that the recommendation of the hearing officer be affirmed. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Dowling. My understanding is it should be a duplex and it's being used as a triplex by use of the basement.
Correct.
Okay, and there's no windows down in the basement?
Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, that is correct. One of the issues with why the basement unit couldn't be used is because of the lack of the egress window.
Okay, what are the other issues?
Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, from a building standpoint, there needs to be 2 separate entrances. All fixtures and appliances have to be approved by permit, and there's also a ceiling height issue.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for Ms. Dowling right now? Okay. I will open the hearing and first read the introductory statement. This is a quasi-judicial license hearing for which this committee is limited by law to hearing argument from the property owner or the owner's representatives, but is prohibited from considering any further evidence or taking any further testimony. This means that you are required to limit your comments to arguments specifically addressing the evidence or testimony introduced before the hearing officer, which is part of the record that is already before us. If you did not appeal before in the hearing officer, which is part of the record that is already before us, then your testimony must be even further limited. You may not offer and we may not consider any new or additional evidence based solely on the existing record and the arguments that the parties make today. The City Council may affirm, modify, or reverse the recommendation that is before us. So all in sum, we are prohibited from considering any new evidence that was brought at the hearing, and since there was not a hearing that the appellant showed up at, we are extremely limited. That being said, is either the owner or a representative of the owner here today? Thank you, sir. When you come forward, and please state your name as well as your address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Margot Skapic. I'm the owner of 3324 23rd Avenue South. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
If I could just stop you right there. So where exactly do you live?
I live at 3849 23rd Avenue, but I have a mailing address, P.O. Box.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Yes, you can proceed, please.
I would like to make it clear that I believe the fact that the reasons for revoking the rental license is based on the fact that I haven't been accommodating the inspection. And I just want to make it clear that I have always accommodated inspection whenever I was aware. The first request for inspection was on August 8th. I worked closely with the tenant and the inspector to accommodate the inspection. The next request for inspection on October 21st, I received untimely due to the fact that it was mailed out October 17, which is only 4 days prior the inspection, and it's over the weekend. That was not enough time for me to receive that information. All the remaining requests, inspection October 30, November 19, were mailed to address that is not my mailing address. I have tried to provide my mailing address on 2 accounts to the city regulatory services. First was in spring of 2014 2014, when I was obtaining the new rental license for the lower level unit, I provided my mailing address, P.O. Box. However, the city official informed me that they are not accepting P.O. Box addresses. So here I am, I have a mailing address I'm giving to, but they are not taking. So I gave some address that is of my property, but I don't get mail when it's being sent to that address in timely manner. The second time I provided the mailing address was after I received a call from Inspector Kelly on July. I returned call to her on July 26, and from all these allegations that came, I was clearly asking for her to mail me information so that's on the record, and I provided my mailing address, the P.O. Box. Despite the facts, the city regulatory services continue to mail me requests to an address that I don't receive the requests for inspection. So it's kind of hard to accommodate an inspection when I don't know about them. Furthermore, the last two requests, October 30 and November 19, are asking for me to accommodate an inspection for a unit that is shut down by regulatory services, but I don't have access. So they send on the wrong address. They're asking for impossible to do an inspection to begin with. Is clearly, I don't know how I can physically accommodate the request. I also want to mention that I have complied with all the city ordinances. The rental license for upstairs units has been extended in year 2014. I obtained a second rental license for the lower level unit. Later on, when on August 8th, Inspector Kelly informed about the issue with the zoning, that this property is zoned in a zoning with two units, even though the property we purchased was with 3 units.
Mr. Cobb, I'm going to cut you off here.
Yeah.
A lot of what you're getting into now is not relevant. The pieces that are relevant, though, however, are first you didn't attend the appeal hearing. Is there a reason for that?
It was on schedule on Thursday and not Tuesday in my calendar. I apologize. I don't know how the mistake happened, but it was on Thursday. I emailed it on Wednesday clarifying. I am sorry. It was a mistake that, I work long hours.
Okay, so it was an incorrect calendaring. The second question I have is, you mentioned that it's impossible for you to gain access to the apartment that you own based on the city's action. Is that what you're saying?
Right. The city on October 21st came out. I don't even know. I was not informed. They break in my lower level unit. They found now unlawful occupancy. They still choose to shut down the lower unit, making inaccessible to the mechanics and the electric panels, making the residents, the children, unsafe. I mean,
so Mr.
And then
is there still somebody that's living in that lower level, or has it been vacated?
No, I'm working with the city on having this as an accessory unit. It has been pre-approved. We are working with the building requirements to finish this process of converting it into an accessory unit.
So that nobody's living there right now.
Right.
All right, Ms. Unless is there anything further that has? I think you've said enough at this point. But I would like to have Ms. Dowling come up real quick. I just have a few questions for her. Thank you, Ms. Dowling. The nature of the revocation is twofold. Obviously, it's one that he did not show up at the appellate hearing. Right. 2, it's how the building is presently inhabitable as formed, and it's 3 that he did not allow access to it on several different occasions.
Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, that's correct.
Okay. So it's not solely based on the fact that he was not allowed access, or that he did not allow access.
Mr. Vice Chair, correct.
Okay. Do you have anything further to say about some of his testimony?
Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, I did hear what the homeowner did say. As far as the mailings, the city has to go off of either what Hennepin County has, which per Hennepin County, he resides at 3324 23rd Avenue South, or what the rental license says, which my records indicate that it was the 54, I apologize, 5422 24th Avenue, I believe is the other address that we sent mail to. I'm sorry, 5420 44th Avenue South. Those are the two addresses that we have for him.
And did both of those addresses receive the mail simultaneously?
Mr. Vice Chair, he would have, yes.
Just out of curiosity, is there a reason that the city does not send 2 P.O. boxes?
Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, it's just not a part of the rental licensing standards. We need to have a physical address within the 16 metropolitan county area. It's not conducive for the city to have a P.O. box. There's no physical place for the city inspectors to contact the homeowners.
So that's probably to combat the problem, one, of making sure we have an opportunity to give certified mail, but two, to combat absentee landlords, I'm assuming as well.
That is correct.
Okay. Are there any further questions for staff? Anyone? Seeing none, I will move approval of the staff's recommendation. Any further discussion on that matter? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That matter has been approved.
We'll then move to our remaining item, which is item number 18, which is just a briefing from Matthew Courtney with regard to our HOPWA program. Matthew, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Matthew Courtney from the Office of Grants and Special Projects. We're bringing before you staff's recommendation for council action on 2 items. Number 1, to approve funding from the 2015 Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS Entitlement Grant, also known as the HOPWA grant, to Minnesota AIDS Project, not to exceed $504,500, and to Metropolitan Council, not to exceed $503,613. And then secondly, to authorize staff to execute contracts with these agencies as necessary to implement the 2015 HOPWA grant program. I can provide some supporting information briefly. The City of Minneapolis annually receives HOPWA entitlement funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to provide housing assistance and related supportive services for low-income persons living with HIV/AIDS and their families. As the largest city with the greatest number of cumulative AIDS cases, Minneapolis is responsible for administering the HOPWA program throughout the 11-county metro area and 2 counties in Wisconsin, Pierce and St. Croix. The city partners with outside organizations to provide this assistance through an annual request for proposals process. To identify the funding priorities, we coordinated with the Minnesota HIV Housing Coalition, which is a community planning and advisory group. The priorities that were identified and published in the 2015 RFP were, number 1, to renew existing programs that provide continuum of care strategies, including tenant-based rental assistance at comparable levels to the previous year's funding, and then secondly, capital projects. 4 organizations responded to the RFP, and there were no capital projects received. Based on the priorities and the available funding limits, staff is recommending renewing the contracts with Minnesota AIDS Project and Metropolitan Council to provide outreach, supportive case management, and tenant-based rental assistance. If approved, it is estimated that 153 low-income households will be directly served throughout the metropolitan region in the upcoming year. And I can take questions
for staff? So the reason I asked to put this on discussion was because there were 2 issues. We discussed in agenda setting. I want to bring them forward today. One had to do with the distribution of these units throughout the 11-county area, which is our responsibility as the administrator of these funds. That information was provided to me, and it looks like the breakdown is about 40% are in Minneapolis, 30% in St. Paul, and the remainder in the suburban communities, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Madam Chair.
And that was a good distribution, I thought, and you probably did too. You were probably surprised to see that.
Yes, yeah.
And I think we have to have a discussion about the distribution of these rental vouchers throughout the metropolitan area. The second issue has to do with a provision in our RFP. Our RFP has not really been reviewed, in a long time. So we've issued the same RFP over and over again. And one of the things it says is it gives a high priority for existing funders, grantees, which I kind of take offense at. I mean, no foundation or grant maker says, if you've already gotten money from us, come back because you'll get it again. Normally what they say is do cool, unique, innovative, progressive, equitable things, and we'll consider funding you again. Not do the same old thing you're always doing, and we'll just give you more money to do it. And so I really think it's important for us as a committee to be looking at this HOPWA grant application. Not important enough to stop the application process now, because that's not what we said we were going to do. But given that we have a new housing director and a lot of interest in this source, I think it's important for us to at least take a look at reviewing our standards that those who are applying to us for this money have to go through, as well as looking at the distribution of these, what are now vouchers. I mean, perhaps there should be a set aside for capital. Perhaps there are many ideas that we can have. And so I just wanted to make sure that members of the committee knew this wasn't something that had been discussed at length in the past. And with new staff as well as new housing staff, it seems to be we could have maybe 1 or 2 conversations and determine whether or not we want to do it a little bit differently next time. So that's why I brought it forward as a discussion item. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add to those thoughts? Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Courtney, I wondered if you might be able to say, what's the future look like in terms of federal funding? Because you pointed out a gap in the funding that was proposed. What happened
yes,
in 2015?
Madam Chair, sorry, Councilmember Quincy. Yeah, back up a moment. Yes, there was a gap in available funding versus the requested amount of funding, a gap in approximately $600,000. The trajectory of federal funding is, in terms of all of the consolidated plan programs, which are Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, the Home Improvement Partnership Program, and then also this HOPWA program has been historically decreased. But actually with HOPWA funding, there's been fairly level funding for the last couple of years, hovering around about $1 million available for the metropolitan area.
So thank you for that. I think that it's really good that you brought this up on discussion, Madam Chair, because we should look at our RFP process for everything within the consolidated plan with an eye towards complying with HUD requirements, but also realizing that there could be a funding shift at the federal level and with the current budget that's being proposed. So what we do with that money, we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can and what we intend to do with it. So it's time to revisit all of our RFPs. Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the staff recommendation for this year, just with a note to staff that we should probably pull together a group of folks to discuss what we might want to do with the application moving forward. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you for being here today. Seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.